Hey everybody. So, when last we met, Katrina was making her way to LA, and Shizuka had pulled over at Stargate Donut to use the bathroom and met the donut lady. Chapter 4. Yes, finally. A rainbow flag on the door, a compost pile in the yard. Katrina had arrived. Katrina had met Evan at a queer youth conference. She was a timid newbie geek with facial hair and bad skin. He was a film student who seemed far too queer and fierce to notice her. And yet, he had comforted her after she broke down in the breakaway gender discussion group. He had assured her that she wasn't the only one who wasn't out to their parents, and who came from a culture where one did not even mention such things. He said that queer folks often chose their families just for these reasons. He told her that she belonged as much as anyone else. Between sessions, they shared lunch. He talked about a short film he was working on and listened when she talked about saving money for a new violin. They held hands, and before they parted, he told her not to give up and promised that he would be there whenever she needed. And then, Evan had kissed her goodbye. But that had been 2 years ago. When Katrina had finally called for help, it had taken Evan a week to reply. Katrina knew that Evan had changed. After all, he'd left college and never finished the film he talked so passionately about at the conference. Still, part of her hoped that he might look at the videos of gaming and anime music she was making for YouTube. Maybe he'd even want to help. But no matter what, here would be a friendly face and a safe space, even for just a little while. The door opened. "It's you," Evan said dully. Katrina tried not to seem shocked. He was thinner than before. His hair was longer, tied up in a bun, and he smelled like body odor, cat fur, and sage. "I sent you an email, and you wrote back. You said to come over, and I sent you text while I was on the way." "Oh, wait for a sec." He disappeared inside. Katrina waited by the doorway. She noticed an old Chinese man across the street eyeing her suspiciously. She gave her best smile as the door opened once more. "You should have said you were coming for real." Evan scratched his head. "Could you come back later tonight? I've got someone here now." "I'm sorry," Katrina mumbled. He glared at the man across the street, then yelled back into the room. "The old man is looking at us again. He looks hungry. Hide the cat." "That's so fucked up," the voice inside giggled. Evan closed the door. Katrina stood there. He'd not even offered to take her bags. Why did she just apologize? She had told him for real. Katrina walked blankly to the corner, just as a bus whooshed away. No worries, she didn't know the bus routes, and an unexpected bus fare was not in her budget anyway. Katrina kept walking. In his email, Evan had written that this place was like a foreign country. Yet here were dentist offices and banks and businesses and cafes with clean glass windows and streets with new Japanese and European SUVs. For a while, she lost herself in the novelty of being in this new town. But eventually, her feet started to hurt. Her rib was throbbing, and she was low on ibuprofen. And besides, she needed to use the bathroom. So Katrina decided to buy a boba. The boba would cost money, but she would have to have a place to rest and think. Luckily, the street offered a boba shop every couple blocks or so. Soon, Katrina found a perfect spot to have a clean table, sip a kiwi boba, and watch the world go by. But first, the bathroom. The women's room was locked. Eventually, a girl came out and gave her a disapproving look, but didn't block her way. Katrina entered and began to fix her hair in the mirror, but then remembered the look from that girl. The hair could wait. She needed to use the bathroom right now. The seat was cool and clean. There was air freshener, a flower in the vase. She smelled lavender. Rest. Breathe. She had just finished when there was a knock on the door. "Excuse me. Excuse me," a male voice said. She flushed, washed up, and exited the bathroom. She grabbed her things and left without stopping or looking up. "Sorry," she mumbled. "The men's room was taken." Well, at least I didn't have to buy anything, right? Katrina told herself she should be thankful. Thanks to the part-time work, the cam shows, the blowjobs, she had escaped home and made it here. She had her violin. She had her laptop and a fresh supply of hormones. She was alive. Still, was it so difficult to find a place to sit down? Then Katrina saw a sign for El Molino Park. Katrina did not know what El Molino Park was, but if it was a nice park, there would be places to rest. She pushed forward, past a 7-Eleven, past a Chinese herb store, a Mexican hardware store, a Vietnamese nail salon, a Taiwanese dance studio, more boba places, a dozen noodle shops. And finally, after 20 more minutes, she came to El Molino Park's parking lot, and then to the park itself. There was fresh grass, fresh dirt, soda machines. People were playing basketball. Couples sat together on blankets. She heard the plink of someone hitting a softball. The snack bar was selling hot dogs and nachos. How was this like a foreign country? Katrina found a bench by a large artificial pond. It was cool, quiet, and undisturbed. Yes, she hadn't merely stumbled on a place to rest. She might even be able to practice her violin. But first, she would rest just a little for her feet and her side. Thank goodness she was Asian and still relatively clean. There would be a couple of curious glances, but no one was likely to call the police. She placed her laptop next to her, put her escape bag under her head, and held her violin. She listened to the sounds of the basketball. She felt a little sunlight and a gentle wind through the trees. There was a fake waterfall, a fountain, and ducks. Shizuka left the Stargate Donut with no desire to revisit the freeway. Instead, she decided to drive the surface streets home. The car was from an admirer given long ago. When she was younger, the Jaguar seemed overpowered and loud, but with each passing year, she could better appreciate how timelessly it navigated the everyday chaos around her, yet never lost its singular, insatiable thirst for gasoline. How many years has it been since she had last driven these streets? So much had changed. If anything, change was the one constant here. Shizuka's childhood sheet music store had gone first. Then Foodland, with its cute baggers and wobbly shopping carts, became Deho Grocery, and finally a Hong Kong bank, anonymous behind darkened windows and a marble facade. And now the elementary school had yielded to a Mediterranean casual apartment complex, complete with mixed-use shopping and underground parking. Tonight, young people would be crowding these sidewalks, perhaps lining up for Japanese crepes and Taiwanese shaved ice. This was very different from Tokyo, where there was almost a desperation to either be at the forefront of change or to guard against it at all costs. Be it Harajuku, Meiji Jingu, Akihabara, each was defined by a strict relationship to and profound respect for change. Here, change had continued with so little fanfare or notice that change had become, well, mundane. Of course, some places remained curiously resistant to change. Bong's Burger was busily serving its delicious pork buns from its greasy side window. Amy's Pastries still displayed the same dusty wedding cake with the lopsided pillars and 3 dead flies. And there were the greasy, glistening, impossibly fragrant ducks, pigs, and cuttlefish dripping in the window of Sam Wu Barbecue. Yet none of these places appeared to be doing any resisting. Changing with the times? Bongs didn't even wipe their countertops with the times. And as far as preserving tradition, Sam Wu Barbecue was now happily promoting its new deep-fried fish skins. There they were, and there, most likely, they would always be. Yet another of Shizuka's landmarks was now just ahead. Shizuka did not visit her childhood home very often, but the pond at El Molino Park had always been one of her favorite places, one of the few that held happy memories of her parents. Over time, the park had added softball and baseball diamonds, resurfaced the outdoor basketball courts with a non-slip coating. The city had added tables with chessboards, a fitness par course, expanded the tennis courts. Even a lawn bowling club had come and gone. And yet there was always that bench by the same old pond. For much of her life, it had been a place where she could come to think, to contemplate, to be alone. And now, with nowhere else to go, it seemed as good a place as any to be. Today, Shizuka had with her the half donut from Stargate and some water, and a bag of hot dog buns from the corner drugstore. She strolled to the pond, just as she had done for years. Someone in the distance had just plinked a ground ball and run out a base hit. The snack bar served another order of nachos. Circling them were mothers and fathers pushing baby carts around the rubberized jogging path. Behind her, basketball, so much basketball, so many voices speaking different, Vietnamese, Toyanese, Cantonese. And in front of her, the wind on the lake, the almost natural rush of the artificial waterfall. Pigeons cooing nearby, the flapping, quacking, a child splashing a rock. And on her favorite bench was a peacefully snoring girl. At first, Shizuka assumed she was a neighborhood kid taking a study break, but then Shizuka noticed her bags. A runaway? How sad. Well, better to let her rest. Shizuka was about to find another bench when the girl turned over. She was holding a violin case. What? Katrina opened her eyes to an apparition. The woman standing over her looked just like the girl from The Ring, except she was wearing sunglasses and was older and in red instead of white, and wore a wide-brimmed hat. And, "Nice day, isn't it?" the apparition said pleasantly. Yes? Katrina looked around. She was not dreaming. And yes, she was still in, was it El Molino Park? Want some donut? Wasn't the usual phrase, a donut, not some donut? Then Katrina saw the size of what the woman was holding. Maybe she was dreaming after all. It's an Alaska donut. Well, half of one. The woman handed her the whole piece and a bottle of water. Katrina hesitated. Who was this person? People dressed like that didn't just feed homeless kids asleep on park benches. Just take it. The woman gestured at her violin case. It's not like I've never seen a hungry musician before. Katrina took a small bite. So sweet, so soft. She took another, larger this time, and another. The sugary, chewy goodness cleared her head, and suddenly her world regained color and sound. You like it? The woman asked. Yes, very much so, thank you. If only I'd listened to Astrid and brought tangerines. Again she pointed to Katrina's violin case. Your baby? Yes. Katrina finished the last of the donut and licked her fingers. She rinsed her hands with some of the water, and the woman gave her a dry napkin. Any time, go ahead, she said matter-of-factly. Go ahead? Practice. Huh? Katrina felt more than a little self-conscious. It seemed like ages since she'd felt free to play. Don't worry, I'm just here to feed the ducks. Katrina hesitated. But the sunlight was becoming golden. The first blackbirds were leaving the trees. With sweetness of doughnut lingering in her mouth, Katrina opened her case. Meanwhile, Shizuka reached into the bag of hot dog buns, tore off a big piece, and tossed it into the lake. To be truthful, the girl was likely a beginner. Scratchy bowing, non-existent intonation, the usual beginner headaches. Still, there was something refreshing about listening to someone who had nothing to do with brilliance or souls. But then the girl opened her violin case. The girl beamed, absolutely shone. Her expression was completely different from the nervous, cultivated expressions she'd seen in Arcadia. Shizuka thought of Mr. Grossmuller, who had been through Hitler and everything before and after. When he beheld his violin, a wise and warm Jacob Stainer, he'd kiss it and say in such times his violin was the only thing to live for. What the girl held was no Stainer. It was a mere beginner's instrument, but echoes of hatred, of insanities, of melodies one sings only when one has survived emanated from her just the same. And then, in the space where words might have been, Shizuka heard the unexpected. Most people would have heard a tone. A trained musician might hear A440. And a very special musician would hear the violin waking up, saying good morning, once again coming to life. A tuning fork? The girl exhaled and seemed to blush. My violin likes it better when I tune her this way. Shizuka was now fully focused on the player before her. Where had this girl come from? South St. Gabriel? Rosemead? Shizuka thought of all the students she had seen in Arcadia with brand new digital tuners and oh so precious instruments. How does one such as this simply wander into a park? Shizuka wondered what she would play. Bach? Mozart? Maybe Chrysler? She had a presence that would go with Chrysler. Or Bartók? Shh! Shizuka stilled herself. Reality was reality. That instrument, that student bow, that awful rosin in the sliding plastic box, this was no cultivated prodigy. Bartók? Don't be silly, Satomi. More likely she'll play Perpetual Motion from the Suzuki Book 1. Of all the music she might have imagined, Shizuka did not expect the girl to pull out Schreidik. Schreidik? As in the School of Violin Technics. These were not musical compositions, but musical exercises. They were basic and beneficial, but basic and beneficial in the way that cod liver oil once was, or a measles vaccine, or a regular trip to the dentist. How many countless students had given up violin because of Schreidik? Shizuka smiled politely, then turned toward pond and ducks. There was no sense in making the girl nervous. The Queen of Hell opened the bag of hot dog buns, tore off a big chunk, and steeled herself for whatever horrible sound she was about to hear. Shizuka was a child, on her way to school. During the winter mornings, especially around February, there was ice everywhere, on rain puddles, on windshields. Today the grass crunched underfoot. Even the air seemed frozen. Julie Kiyama was holding her fingers to her mouth, exhaling into the frost and shouting, "Look at me, I'm smoking!" "Smoking is bad for you," Julie's sister Sally yelled. "Smoke rings, smoke rings! If you don't stop smoking, I'm telling!" And then they ran off. She tried to keep up with them. She ran as fast as she could, but they had their hands free, and she had her violin. Shizuka found herself breaking each bun into even smaller pieces so she could listen just a little more. And as the girl finished Schreidik, Shizuka watched Julie and Sally Kiyama, her last childhood friends, disappear into the icy February mist. In a faded box marked free, school was over. As usual, Katrina was walking home alone. And as usual, she wandered, meandered, trying to prolong each moment before she had to face her parents. There was a store that sold used refrigerators and washing machines. There was what was left of a public phone that nobody used. And there was a used bookstore, and in front was a faded box marked free. Katrina browsed through the box, full of the usual torn periodicals, self-help books, fad diets, computer manuals for long dead machines, and then she stopped. School of Violin Technics by Henry Schreidick. First published in 1901, the book was probably there because all the markings, annotations, scribbles, and teacher's notes made the book unsellable. But for Katrina, each suggested fingering, each message penciled over notes or inked into a margin offered an encouragement and direction that she had never before seen. Katrina had always loved music, especially the violin. Long ago, she had even taken lessons. But she was queer and living in a small town east of Oakland. The afternoon that he found her makeup, Katrina's father had punched her so hard that the entire side of her face turned black and blue. As word got around, her family, her church, the people at school hurled insults, shame. You should act like a boy. You should repent. You should apologize. You should die. But here, all around the music, someone's teacher wrote, "Relax. Keep your fingers open and light." Someone's teacher wrote, "Think of sunshine. You don't need to rush. Just follow the notes. Trust yourself. Good job." And there, someone's teacher had drawn happy faces, and there, someone's teacher had pasted stars. "Who's your teacher?" Shizuka finally said. No one." The girl was munching on a hot dog bun. This made no sense. How does someone with no teacher encounter Schreidick? "I took the violin in school once when I was 7, but my father stopped the lessons." "Why?" Shizuka was even more confused. Anyone could hear this was a gifted musician. "He said it was making me a faggot," the girl said. The girl rubbed her eye and winced. Shizuka inhaled sharply. Some of her makeup had smeared off to reveal the bruised skin underneath. The bag fell from Shizuka's hands. Ducks flew at the fallen hot dog buns, tearing everything she had brought with her to shreds. "I think I'd better go," Katrina said. "No, wait." With a speed that surprised her, the woman grabbed Katrina's arm. Crap! Katrina froze. She could probably break the woman's grip, but if she caused a commotion, she would get in trouble for sure. Stupid Katrina, stupid. What if she thinks I'm a boy? What if she calls the police? "Let me see your violin," the woman said gently. "Huh?" "Your violin, please." Wait. What was this? Katrina was in shock. The woman was playing the same Schreidick, wasn't she? But how could Schreidick sound like that? So quick, yet so even, it almost seemed like a blur. But this was no blur. Each note was perfectly formed, perfectly spaced, and fully developed. How could hands move that way? And yet, as the woman played, she was talking, as if on a lazy morning stroll. "You have a very pretty tone, and I notice you play just a little sharp. You're a bit of a diva, aren't you?" Katrina had heard the term diva and drag in queer circles, but here, in the context of music, the sound of it made something inside her swoon. "It's fine to be a diva," the woman said with a wink, "but you have to own it." And then, where there had been the practice exercises, suddenly there was music. Katrina could still recognize the original exercises, but now there seemed to be 2 violins, and now there were 3. The music was sunrise, permeating the park. People stopped mid-sentence, mid-stroll to listen. Even the ducks seemed to stop squabbling. The music was every hope Katrina had abandoned, every dream she had released. It was hamburgers on the grill, fruit punch in the cooler, a bag of Costco beef jerky for everyone. It was dancing without knowing the steps and not caring. It was her mom holding her dad calling her his little girl. And then it stopped. Oops, I guess I got carried away, the woman mumbled. Katrina's eyes focused on the woman before her. Her breath was shallow and her body was shaking and unsteady. Slowly, carefully, she sat back down. She was perspiring. But when Katrina touched her, she was ice cold. Are you okay? Katrina asked. Should I call a doctor? No. The woman winced. Her eyes seemed focused on something distant. It's just a friendly reminder that my playing days are over. The woman gently handed back her violin. My name is Satomi, she coughed. Water. Katrina handed a bottle to her. She took a sip and another. Color slowly returned to her face. Thank you. I used to be a violinist, but now I'm a teacher. The woman looked closely at Katrina, and Katrina panicked. She was bracing to hear, Wait, you're a boy. Instead, the woman's gaze never changed. And I could teach you. Katrina's heart skipped a beat. To be able to play like that? To make music that could do that? But private lessons? Katrina looked around. The sun had set, and the trees and buildings were now jet black against a fiery evening sky. The badminton players were already warming up in the gym. Soon the park lights would come on, and the softball people would be playing softball. In the meantime, Katrina didn't even have a place to live. I don't think so, she said softly. I mean, thank you, but no. Katrina gathered her stuff and made ready to leave. But the woman reached into her purse, took something out, and put it in Katrina's hand. It was her business card. Shizuka Satomi, please come see me. Or you can meet me here, she offered. Maybe next week? Maybe, Katrina heard herself say. Chapter 5. It was nearly dark when Evan finally let her inside. Inside was more cat hair, more smell. Evan showed her the sofa. He pushed some boxes of queer paraphernalia to the side. You can put your bags on there when you aren't sleeping. How long are you going to be here? Katrina could only shrug. Evan rolled his eyes. Skylar! He shouted to his roommate, who wore clothes with a lot of patches. This is Katrina that I was talking about. Skylar glanced up. Katrina was about to introduce herself, but Skylar went back to her phone. Evan went back to his phone as well. Not much later, Skylar's friends, Jewel and Ethan, arrived. Apparently, there had been plans for dinner. How about hot pot? I just discovered this vegan place on Yelp that's totally authentic, said Jewel. Show me. Evan looked at Skylar's phone. I was there, Ethan declared. I think there were Mexicans cooking in the back. The two of them laughed at the thought of Mexicans in a Chinese kitchen. Eventually, they decided to order vegan pizza. Katrina offered to buy. It was not exactly in her budget, but she was a new guest. Once they heard that, they added toppings and ordered some wings. This happened the night after, and after. They ordered vegan pizza. They smoked. They talked about shows they were binge-watching. They smoked. Once in a while, someone would mention some sort of creative project. They'd either dismiss it or say it was badass and fierce, and then they talked and smoked some more. Evan scratched his beard. I want to start a crowdfund for a web series, like The Asian Whisperer or something, where I show people all this weird shit that's here, kind of a David Attenborough thing. That's appropriation, Evan, Skylar said. Though it's not like Asians don't appropriate other cultures, and besides, they aren't really people of color. Anyway, I saw this video where someone explains how to explore an Asian supermarket. That's so badass. Katrina found the bathroom and locked the door. She began to itch. She looked in the shower. She wished she hadn't. Yet at least the bathroom was quiet. At least she couldn't hear them talking about Asians, about Mexicans. Katrina sat there, confused. Yes, queers were not the most stable, and she hadn't seen Evan in person for 2 years, but still, hadn't he told her he thought she was beautiful? Hadn't Evan told her that they were family? Finally, Katrina wiped herself, flushed, then washed her hands as best she could, grateful that some parts of her, at least, could be cleaned. Of all the times to get careless! Yes, any teacher or contestant in Arcadia that day would have known Shizuka Satomi, but the world was a far bigger place than the violin community in Arcadia, or the violin community anywhere for that matter. How could you have been so stupid? The girl must have thought she was crazy, and honestly, could anyone blame her? And now, how was Shizuka supposed to find her? Put a call out to the violin community? As if. Those people had too much to chatter about as is. Besides, the girl was not part of that community. Astrid brought out breakfast. I think you'll like the tangerine jam. The Aguilars brought so much fruit, and I didn't want it to go to waste. It's quite good with toast, but still don't know how to prepare the bitter melon. I'll check my cookbooks, I'm sure. Astrid stopped. I'm sure you'll find her, Miss Satomi. I'm sorry, Astrid. The jam is quite tasty. Astrid shook her head. Please don't apologize, Miss Satomi. I'm thrilled that you have found the student that you want. In the park of all places. It's difficult to believe. Isn't it, though? Shizuka was having a difficult time believing it herself. A musician worthy of the Queen of Hell should have been recognized somewhere, right? Who? What? How is this possible? Even now Shizuka could sense Astrid's concern. Had she made a mistake? Was this wishful thinking? Might Tremont Philippe be playing a cruel joke? No. The girl might be battered, a runaway. She might have had no idea who Shizuka Satomi was, and yes, she might be unnoticed, unrecognized, even untrained. But was Shizuka heard? From the call of the tuning fork through the first draw of her bow to Schradek and the river of February mist. Shizuka stared out the window at the cloudless wash of sky. Oh, Satomi, if only you had kept your composure. If only you had asked for a telephone number, gotten a hint to where she might be staying. Shizuka finished her breakfast and reached for her sunglasses. But what was done was done. And the girl did have her card, if she hadn't thrown it away. For now, all she could do was tell Astrid to once again prepare for a guest and return to El Molino Park. For after so long sensing it, almost swearing by it, chasing it, believing in it, Shizuka Satomi finally knew what she had been waiting for. And more importantly, she finally knew why. Mother, she's back, said Shirley. This was the third time this week that Sunglass Lady had come to the store, yet Lan had still not asked her her name. This was silly. This woman was a regular customer. One should know the names of regular customers, right? Then why was she hesitating? Lan had led her family out of an interstellar war zone, across a galaxy, safely to an obscure star system, and even secured this wonderful donut shop. She nodded to herself and took a deep breath. This time, when Sunglass Lady came to the counter, Lan would say, "Welcome back." Take her order and then ask her name. Why should I cut the donut in half? The boy in front of her couldn't have been more than 12. I can't eat the whole donut, so I want to save half for later, Shizuka explained. He didn't need to know that the best way to preserve one's music is repetition. A half donut from Stargate was the first thing she had given that player in the park, and so Shizuka would play it just as she remembered. not to mention that she was hoping, just a little, to chat with Donut Lady. The boy shrugged. Then why don't you get a Texas donut? It's like an Alaska donut, but half the size. However, this had been her third time back to the big donut, and though the donuts had been impeccably consistent, Donut Lady had either not been present or passed by quickly, barely saying hello. Well, Donut Lady was probably married since she had kids, and even if she was a single mom, she was probably looking for a good man anyway. And it wasn't as if Shizuka had time to start dating. Then I'll have a Texas donut. We don't have Texas donut. Kendall Donuts has one, so you should go there. Excuse me? Wait, please, came a frantic voice from the back. The older sister, Shirley, rushed to the counter. Sorry, ma'am. He usually doesn't work the counter. But you told me to be helpful, and I was being helpful. Come on, Edwin. Shizuka watched as Shirley pushed him into the kitchen. Then she turned back to the counter and fell into the firmament of Donut Lady's eyes. Welcome back, Donut Lady said. One Alaska donut cut in half? Shizuka finally managed to say. Sure thing, Donut Lady said, just as she always had. See, I told you. She should just get 2 smaller donuts, Shizuka could hear the boy say from the back. Shh! Mother's taking care of this. And remember, you always give the customer what they ask for. Donut Lady gave Shizuka her order, then rushed away. Shizuka went to her usual table with her coffee, her half donut, and her other half donut. She sipped her coffee as before. She ate her half donut just as before. Frantic bathroom trip accepted, everything was as before. Other customers were looking at her, as before. As before, she was alone. No matter. Shizuka did not belong here. She was only here for the half donut and the coffee. She was only here to connect with a student, and once she found that student, she need never return. As for Donut Lady, if she had a song for every moment that might have been. Shizuka put a lid on her coffee and looked for a napkin to wipe her hands. Mother, she's leaving. Talk to her, Shirley said. Oh, no, Lan said. Next time for sure. You said that last time. I think she's looking for a napkin. I can give her a napkin, Edwin offered. Shirley rolled her eyes. Edwin, go say hi to Auntie. Mother, here, napkins, and take this. She'll need a to-go bag. No, wait. Shirley pushed her mother to the front of the shop. Seriously, sometimes organic brains. Here are some napkins, Lan said, and a bag for your half donut. Thank you. I'm so sorry for the confusion, Sunglass Lady said. No, I'm sorry, miss. Shizuka. Oh, here you go then. Shirley watched her mother thrust the napkins and the bag at the woman. No, Shirley thought. Mother, you can do this. She told you her name, now tell her yours. Mother, tell her your name. What's your name? Her mother asked. Shirley cringed. Mother, she already told you that. But the woman smiled. Shizuka. It's a Japanese name. And yours is? Shizuka. Mother! Lan. My name is Lan Tran. Katrina coughed, then winced. The magical day with that violin teacher seemed ever more distant and unbelievable. She'd searched Shizuka Satomi on the internet. No images, no music, no nothing. A few articles mentioned a teacher in Europe by that name, but she would have been far older than that woman in the park. Skylar was sure it was a scam. Evan suggested she was a tranny chaser who was hoping to give Katrina more than violin lessons. Lesbian tranny tracer, ugh, that's so wrong, Jewel had said. She pointed to the violin case. So, you want to make videos? Yes, Katrina said. I'm doing covers of gaming music and some anime. I already posted a few online. I thought maybe Evan might help. Jewel rolled her eyes. Gaming music? That's so lame. Oh, wow. I always wanted a fiddle. How much did you pay for it? Asked Aiden. It's from China, not too expensive. China. Fucking master's tools? Bell hooks said that, Skylar said. Bell hooks? Katrina had been sure Skylar had quoted Audre Lorde. But what could her violin have to do with Audre Lorde? Then Evan started talking about wanting to take up the ukulele. Aiden and Jewel fangirled about a TV show where there was a pawn shop and how weird cool it was and how one day they wanted to check something like that out. Eventually, Katrina must have fallen asleep. When she came to, Evan had something in his hand. How do you play this with no frets? Evan asked. He was strumming it like a ukulele. No, you'll break it, Katrina shouted. She reached for it, but Evan pulled it away. Dude, chill. I got a ukulele tune, but the strings kept slipping and buzzing. The bridge! Katrina pulled the violin from Evan's hands. Bridge what? Skylar walked into the living room. Do you have any money for the bus? What? She grabbed Katrina's purse, fished around, and pulled out a $5 bill. Thanks, girl. Gotta go. Evan waved to Skylar, then glanced at Katrina. Finally, he went into his bedroom and closed the door. Katrina listened carefully for any danger. She heard a dog and an old man across the street. She heard school children outside. Softly, she put her violin away and closed her purse. Still quiet. Good. It seemed safe for now. And Katrina had still not taken a bath. The shower was still cold and filthy, but there was no time to think about that. She didn't know how much time she had. She quickly scrubbed, shampooed, conditioned, and felt almost human before Evan came in. He held her from behind and kissed her. Katrina remembered how she'd just started wearing makeup and found a woman's blouse from a secondhand store. Her hair hadn't grown out yet, but she had fastened it with a shiny pink barrette. And it had been the first time she'd gotten a lanyard and a name tag with her chosen name, Katrina, and she/her printed in boldface Helvetica. And, after another workshop where she had said nothing, Evan had sat with her for lunch. She had a ham sandwich, while his was tofu. She apologized about being too stupid to know queers shouldn't eat meat, and so many pronouns existed that she'd never even heard of Imogen Binney or Nevada. Then he hushed her with his finger, kissed her on the forehead, and she felt her body go liquid like summer sun. And then he kissed her on the lips, and she knew it didn't mean anything except that it meant everything. But now, I was thinking it would be a way to help with the rent, you know? He pushed her down and continued. After he finished, Evan tried to kiss her again. I don't know why you're crying, he said. It's fair trade. Besides, I can only imagine how you paid for that violin. Eventually, Evan left with a couple of their friends for a new Korean teriyaki place that was supposed to be super authentic. Katrina listened as Evan's Jeep drove 1, 2, then 3 blocks away. Katrina felt for her safety bag. Then, quietly, she retrieved her violin. From China, a P20 Plus, maple, spruce, ebony. The eBay description said it was a copy of a 1710 Stradivarius. Even in the dimness of Evan's living room, the wood grain seemed to hold whatever light it could find. Come see me, or you can meet me here, the teacher had offered. She was so beautiful. Was she even real? Katrina reached into her purse. Whoever she was, to be able to play like that, to make music that could do that. Yes, the woman's card was still there. Of course, she'd never use it, but yes, it was real. The music she remembered, the music that she was hearing even now, was real. And then Katrina's phone buzzed, and with it, a more immediate reality. Someone wanted a date. and he was nearby. It did not take long to make herself pretty, at least pretty enough. Early on, she realized that being Chinese, Vietnamese, and Mexican meant that with the right makeup and attitude, she could seem exotic to just about anyone. Work it, girl. Though she far preferred to webcam, there was neither the space nor privacy to do cam sessions at Evans. She looked herself over. It would do. She carefully packed her violin, then hid it away before heading out the door. It was time to make money. Chapter 6. Unfortunately, the hookup was horrible. Although he seemed normal at first, he was high on something, and his dick wasn't getting hard. A man on drugs with a limp dick can be very scary. He tried and cursed and then began to blame her, insisting he was soft because he wasn't a homo. And then he wanted her to top him. And then he wanted her to speak Chinese. And then he pulled her hair and spat on her. But at least he didn't re-injure her ribs. And thank goodness he wasn't able to come. Sometimes guys like this got crazy with trans girls after they came. And yes, thank goodness he paid. Katrina started the walk back to Evans. As she watched the cars go by, she tried to feel grateful. Gratitude was difficult. Yes, she had money, for now, but she wasn't stupid. Her ribs weren't healing, and her hormones would run out in 2 weeks, a month if she stretched them. If she stepped onto that road, what would be different? And why was she fighting anyway? She had just sucked someone for money after fucking someone else for rent. What made her so special that she should live? But then Katrina smelled food. First, she smelled the sweet, almost citrusy smell of roast duck, with the heavier warmth of barbecue pork, chilies from a hot pot, oyster sauce being stir-fried into a wok of raised noodles, salted eggs and rice porridge, fried turnip cakes with diced leeks, ginger, and green onion lo mein. The many smells from the kitchens from all the small, bustling restaurants along the boulevard made her stomach growl, her mouth salivate. She may not have a reason to live, but here were plenty of reasons to eat. Half an hour later, Katrina was sitting at a table with a bowl of pork belly noodle soup. The skin crackled on the outside of the pork, while the flesh oozed with fatty juices within. The noodles had the perfect bite, and the broth was glistening with the flavor of long-cooked bones. A server came to check her teapot. Around her, the staff was serving, bussing, chopping, sweeping. A waiter used some leftover tea to wipe off a greasy table. No stares, no judgment, no father yelling. She was eating a meal, and no one was mad or disappointed. Katrina ate another wonton, then more pork belly. The customers at the other tables didn't even notice her. Someone laughed at someone else's joke. Someone was complaining that their grandson wasn't studying hard enough. She felt strange. No, not strange. Better. When was the last time she had felt better? She had food in her belly, money in her purse. Her purse. As if on its own volition, Katrina's hand reached into her purse and retrieved a business card. It looked exactly as it had before. No smudges, no folds. Even the corners were crisp and sharp. To look like this after everything she had been through seemed like a miracle. And the miracle's name was Shizuka Satomi. Katrina asked the server for the check, took out her phone, and opened Google Maps. Where Katrina was from, only white people lived on hills. Other people, even the rich ones, usually just bought larger homes with bigger driveways to accommodate more cars, extended families, or both. White people, on the other hand, grew uncomfortable when others looked down at them, so the rich ones preferred to roost in the heights. Here, though, in these hills, were pickup trucks, not the shiny kind, but the kind that held lawnmowers. There were more families, more gardens. Yes, there was wealth. The BMWs and that large marble statue of Kuan Yin didn't lie, but the yards were more likely to hold vegetables than fountains and lawns. After 35 minutes of walking, she stood in front of a house. It was a house that had been cared for immaculately for years. Even the jaguar in the driveway seemed calm and secure. In the front was a garden with some bonsai, a persimmon tree, and a little stone path leading up to the front door. Katrina felt her breath and her heartbeat quicken. Once she set foot on that path, knocked on that door, her life might change forever. Then she heard footsteps and sharp steel. The old lady had been harvesting beans. She looked at Katrina closely. Katrina froze. "You girl or boy?" asked the old lady gruffly. In a panic, Katrina turned and rushed down the hill. What was she doing here? What could she have been thinking? Evan wasn't so bad, and it was only for a little while. She would figure out how to get less creepy work. She would find a way to do cam sessions. She looked at her empty hands and cursed. Besides, only an idiot would visit a violin teacher without bringing a violin. Another Saturday morning, and not a word. And also not a sound. And this was bothering Shizuka more and more each day. Wherever she was, the girl had not played violin since that day in the park. If she had, Shizuka would have sensed it immediately. To be filled with such music, yet unable to play. She was not unfamiliar with what that could do to a soul. Shizuka nibbled absently on a potato pancake. Suddenly, her mouth encountered something familiar yet unpleasant. "I put some of the loose bitter melon in the roasty. It adds a nice color, doesn't it?" Shizuka nodded weakly, then reached for the honey. In front of her was another note from the violin teacher, another invitation to hear the Grohl girl play. Shizuka gently tossed it into the trash. "Going to the park again?" Shizuka didn't even need to nod. "I'll pack some leftover bread and some tangerines." "Have you aligned the donut with the local continuum?" Lan asked. "Yes, Captain," Marcus said, "but the ground here is unstable, so we'll need to compensate with a probability algorithm. Shall I create one?" Lan nodded. "Yes, but work with Wendy. I want her to learn, so be sure to explain everything as you go. When you are done, let me verify your figures." Lan checked the time and headed to the elevator. "Captain, what about Edwin?" "Well, he's probably in the kitchen with Auntie Floresta." Marcus nodded. Nothing more needed to be said. Lan walked to the front of the shop. The soft, yeasty glazed donuts, twists, and maple bars were to her right, the colorful cake donuts to her left. In the seating area, some maintenance workers from the city were on morning break. Two young mothers chatted with babies and toddlers firmly in tow. In the corner, some boys already circled the Stargate machines. All systems were go. Captain Tran couldn't help feeling proud. She had brought her family here, escaping the war, to cross a galaxy, to all of this. And she would protect all of this, no matter what. But then Lan noticed someone at the counter. Sunglass Lady. Where was Shirley? The last time Shizuka had visited, Lan embarrassed herself in front of the entire store. But Shirley was wiping down tables and chatting with the moms. Nervously, Lan approached the counter. What was she going to say? What would she call her? Should she use her name? Was it proper to use her name? Her name was Shizuka. She has very nice hair. "Good morning. Can I try one of those?" And her voice, it was prettier still. Please?" "What? Oh, donut hole." Lan speared one with her tongs. Shizuka sampled it and nodded. "I would like a half Alaska donut and regular coffee. And may I have a big bag of donut holes?" "Throwing party?" Lan congratulated herself on maintaining a proper donut shop accent. In a way. She was probably throwing a party for her children. Shizuka would be married, of course, but she must have a family. Lan felt an unexpected little ache in her heart, but she kept her smile and motioned to Shirley, who came out with a paper grocery bag. Wait, I give you something better. These donuts are 2 day old, so we can't sell them as 1 day old. They still good though. Just don't tell. Then people ask around and health department show up. Mother! Shirley scolded. I'll keep it secret. Shizuka smiled. Besides, who knows what else you donut people keep back there? No, no. Lan waved her hands. Nothing special back there. Nothing special at all, just donut stuff. Excuse me. Shirley apologized. She pulled Lan away, and the two started arguing in what must have been Vietnamese. They were peculiar, but in a very non-musician way. In fact, watching them made Shizuka feel refreshed. So Shirley was Lan's daughter. Of course she was. Shizuka had never seen any sign of the father. Not that it was her business. Ah, but enough with the daydreams. She had somewhere to be. Well, I should be getting to the ducks. Ducks? I'm off to feed the ducks. Not to imply your donuts are duck food, but... Ducks? Lan asked again. The way she asked it was peculiar, as if, no, surely Lan knew what a duck was. Did they not have ducks in her country? If you want, I can show you. Oh, no. You see, I have to work. Shirley tapped Lan on the shoulder. Mother, take a break. You worked a triple shift yesterday. We can handle the shop while you're gone. Yes, but... Mother, let's get your coat. No matter how much she tried to deny it, her mother was in a very organic body, and that meant she needed time to relax. Shirley nodded to Shizuka. She'll be right out, ma'am. Shizuka heard more muffled speech. Then Lan came out with her coat and a bag of 2-day-old donuts. When they arrived at El Molino Park, the members of the senior tennis club were packing up their equipment. As usual, a couple of the old Chinese women waved. Shizuka frowned. Again, no sign of the violin player. But it was a beautiful day, and she was with Lan. Lan, that's right. I'm with the donut lady, and her name is Lan. Ducks lazily floated past. Mallards, wood ducks, mandarins. And that was not a duck, but a coot. And that was a cormorant. Lan could identify these from her data. But here they glided like ships through space. Some were large and stately, others small, quick, and loud. They filled the pond with different shapes and colors as if in a bustling, healthy spaceport. Shizuka pulled out a red velvet donut with rainbow sprinkles. Do you just toss it in? Shizuka nodded as the 2-day-old donut bounced into the lake. Lan tossed one in as well. The ducks scrambled as usual for their meal, but suddenly the water boiled with scores of carp and goldfish. Some were dark or silver, but many were orange and golden and speckled. Shizuka thought of all the children who had won goldfish at summer church carnivals. Huh, that never happens with bread. Shizuka thought out loud. Maybe the fish have a sweet tooth. Why would they eat sweets if their teeth were already sweet? What? Lan didn't seem to be joking, and the accent that came and went, where was that from? Meanwhile, Lan Tran was ecstatic. She had never done anything like this before. She threw in a lime green donut. Shizuka tossed a bright yellow one. The water frothed and bubbled in vivid rainbow surges. Her home planet had wildlife, but they were kept strictly isolated from civilization. She tossed another and another. Donut sprinkles frothed about like fireworks. Lan watched the ducks battle the goldfish. This would never happen at home. On her home planet, wildlife was protected from war. Ducks versus ducks, fish versus fish. Greed, more feeding, frenzy, explosions. Lan? Another donut. Violence, fire, blood, war. Lan? Another donut. Violence, fire, blood, war. Shizuka grabbed Lan's arm. Gently, she pulled the bag from Lan's hand. Lan. Finally, Lan looked up. In Lan's eyes lay a field of broken stars. Judging by her age, Lan was most likely a refugee. Shizuka remembered when the first Vietnamese refugees came to the San Gabriel Valley. Teachers would ask them not to open their lunches because they stank. Neighbors would call the police when they dried cuttlefish in their backyards. Even bridal shops had been raided by local police with Asian prostitution fantasies who did not know that a Vietnamese bride needed at least 3 gowns for a proper wedding ceremony: a formal Western dress, a traditional white gown, and an ao dai. As a violin teacher, Shizuka knew exactly how to bring out a student's best technique. As a performer, she could read a concert hall without thinking. But how does one talk to a person as a person? She was never good at that. If she had been, she would never have needed to play the violin. So what do you do when you're not making donuts? I take care of my family and make sure they are safe. Lan closed her eyes and felt the sun on her face. Not too bright, not too dim. Good yellow star. Getting them here must have been difficult, she heard Shizuka say. Yes, she replied truthfully. But I'm happy you're here. I mean, for the neighborhood, Shizuka added quickly. Most corner lots get turned into mini-malls. I've always liked the Big Donut. I'm so glad you're here to build up Stargate. Thank you. It was... Wait. Lan had gotten lost in the sound of Shizuka's voice, but she could have sworn she just said, build the Stargate. Lan went on immediate alert. Shirley had said this woman could hear the warp field, and now she mentioned their journey and the Stargate. How could she know what the Trans were doing? What if she was from the Empire itself? The Empire's intelligence network was vast. Some agents could even read minds. Quietly, Lan reached for her phone and activated its weapon mode. If needed, she would stun this woman and leave immediately. Why exactly did you bring me here? Lan asked. If she were a galactic agent, it was better to know now. To enjoy the afternoon and feed the ducks, Shizuka said. And? Lan asked. There's something else, isn't there? Now it was Shizuka's turn to be surprised. What did Donut Lady know about the violin world? Maybe someone had recognized her at the donut shop. Maybe she'd heard rumors that the so-called Queen of Hell was looking for a new student. But even if that were true, how would Lan, the Donut Lady, know that she had found a student here? Why had she even asked Lan along? She should be focused on the final student. Could she have been charmed? Could Donut Lady be working with Tremont Philippe? Just then, a duck walked up in front of her and shat. Shizuka looked down at the duck turd. Seriously, this was all so stupid. Just for once, could she not put the secrets away? Besides, how would Lan even know about Tremont, violins, and human souls? Yes, I'm waiting for a violin student who probably isn't coming, she let herself say. What? Look, I don't know what the others have told you about me, and I won't deny what they say isn't true, but right now, the Queen of Hell shrugged. But right now, I'm enjoying my time with you. Lan was their captain. She was also their mother, and she should be protecting them instead of wasting an afternoon with this woman. This woman, whose voice reminded her of those times sailing by stars and darkness when the rest of the crew was asleep. Whose voice made her feel as if within the wave of the ship's engines, the whir of its life support, the rush of space around her. I think the ducks are still hungry, Lan finally said. They opened the bag of donuts. This time, they made sure to go slowly. There was no reason to rush, and all the reasons not to. Shizuka listened to the basketball players, the softball players. Somewhere a referee was blowing a whistle. From the gym was a light, rapid cadence of table tennis. Just tell me, Lan asked. How did you know we escaped the Galactic Empire? You mean Vietnam? Vietnam? Cambodia? Wait, what? Lan tried to cover up her mistake, but it was too late. For Shizuka realized then that the stars she had seen in Lan Tran's eyes were not figurative. They were real. And that's where we're leaving it this week. Thank you all so much for listening, I guess, because I am not in SL this week. But yeah, I will continue on Monday. I will either be live in Worlds or I will do another recording that I will post Sunday night or Monday. Yeah, and hopefully I'll get to see you all soon.